against him has been looking incredibly dominant on both of those champions throughout this split. Worth mentioning as well, the Lock and the Cassio being taken off the board, so that mid lane pool incredibly pinched to begin with, and it is going to leave open, for me, the next best champion that we've got available in that Rise to hopefully give Shanks some sort of solidarity in the mid lane.
I really do love this Ezreal first pick priority for Viper. Not to say that Viper wouldn't be able to do well on any other champion, but even in other splits, Ezreal has been Hope's most consistent and reliable champion that allows anyone's legend to play the best version of their game, which is leave Hope on an island and try and get active with Tarzan on the other side of the map. Anyone's legend has yet to really show a game where they can play through Hope, get Hope snowballed, and he will carry the game for you. So BLG denying that as a win condition. I like how they are starting things off with this draft and pairing it with Bard. Now you can get on active. We'll see what they want to pair with Xun in the jungle.
I mean, I think Jarvan is a really good pickup here. You already see double immobile locked in for AL. You sort of force the Corki or Lucian Milio from Hope if they are going to look for that bot lane pairing. And I think it might be the fact that there are a couple of options that they don't necessarily want to ban out, that they end up moving away from the Jarvan. Anyone's legend, though, respectably going back toward the Sivir, this Sivir Karma lane, one that we see very frequently, can go toe-to-toe with the Ezreal and the Bard, and sets up for Anyone's Legend's top side here, sets up for Tarzan to try and go toe-to-toe with Xun, to attempt to go for these diving style plays. We've seen some suboptimal Realm Warps today, Raafaa, to be completely honest with you, but that doesn't mean that Realm Warp can't be used offensively, and pairing that alongside Sivir Karma as a bot lane duo is going to enable AL to really hammer home what should be dive in the top side here.
I will say, if I am Anyone's Legend, Olaf stonks are pretty damn high with things like Sivir and Karma behind you and making you go even faster. So we'll see if BLG can sniff that out or have something prepared for a potential Olaf pickup from Breathe going into the second round.
The problem is they'd have to ban Trundle here, which immediately telegraphs that they're going for the Olaf, which is just going to then get banned by BLG. So it's a good way to force a ban out from BLG if that's what you want and you've got nothing else here. But there are some good answers to the Rise if they want to get rid of those. The Annie already off the board. Maybe Anivia gets removed here as well if they're looking for a truly standard answer. The TF gets taken out instead, so removing some of their skirmish capabilities, which I don't mind, as BLG have drafted very heavily toward this skirmish to begin with the Ezreal Bard and the Neferi. Not necessarily really good team fighting just yet, but what they do have is very solid 3v3, 4v4, where we play for a Bard stun and then with the Neferi one-shot, so the Ezreal spells come through on the backside of things. In a full 5v5, neither side just yet has that big front line to stand in front, but I think that's what should be getting rounded out here. We've still got a lot of bruises up on the table in the top lane. Things like the Ambassador, the Renekton, and the Nara as well, if they want to go for it, could easily all be locked in.
Hope playing with our emotions a little bit, hovering some fun champions before eventually settling on something that is a lot more versatile in compositional strength. Nocturne, even though you don't have things like the Orianna to pair alongside with it, it's still just a strong jungler in the meta, and the paranoia utility that you get with it, at least you have a composition behind you that can just as easily join up with you on the dive.
Yeah, it's what we were saying, right? They want to go diving with this top side of AL, and it really is just going to be whatever top lane pick they end up rounding out this composition with that will seal that fate. I think BLG here have a sort of big choice to make. Do they want to preempt what could be an Ambessa for Breathe? Feel like that's the next pick that pairs very nicely with a Nocturne. They're going to go for a Jace, so it gives them that little bit of range, a little bit of safety, and Flandre going to get his hands on that pick for this one. Whenever you see the Jace, the typical response has been this Cassante, but I don't know that it pairs entirely with the AL composition. It is going to act as a front line, and it augments how AL want to play this game here. It means that they're going to look to play this front to back, slightly more scaling oriented 5 versus 5 with a massive front line with DPS from Shanks and Hope later on, and then a little bit of support from Tarzan and Kael, where BLG, they're looking to fight around this 2-item spike, maybe even 1 item around the mid jungle. Knight has a massive set of priority on his shoulders here, where he's going to need to push the pace of this game alongside Xun to make sure this Neferi gets snowballed, because if BLG are turning up to these fights on even numbers at even gold, they're really going to struggle. The entirety of this BLG composition in the late game functions around poke, around the Jace, around the Ezreal, and then allowing Night and Jun to pick somebody up afterwards.
And just imagine if this Ahri is not more than just even, because then K'Sante is stacking armor for the entire game and will shrug off all the poke, all of the inconsistent, non-sustained physical damage coming out from BLG's composition. And anytime Ahri tries to look for a pick on K'Sante, it's going to be like, yeah, I have 4k HP, nice. Well, what is that full charm Ahri combo going to do to me, buddy?
Good one. You found 300 damage on me, and that's about as good as it gets. So hopefully here for BLG, they can find a little bit of a snowball early. We know that Night and Jun are great at pairing up. And I think moving into game number 1 here, Raafaa, that is going to be the goal.
It'll be a great demonstration of BLG's power and really trying to use their mid and jungle 2v2 prowess as a signature mark going into playoffs. It's Anyone's Legend taking on BLG, game 1.
Felt like Kael was louder there, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. Or, hear me out, Rude, I think they were closer to the crowd mic.
That's true. You see, this is the benefit of having you on here, Mark. You've got studio experience, and you know the ins and outs, the secrets here. That actually, we just need to know where the microphone is positioned.
Very true. Already Ghost being popped is what sounded like from Hope Sivir there. A lot of trading back and forth on the level 1 fight to the death. On missing another Cosmic Binding, but at least Viper can thread a couple of Mystic shots here. He's flashing forward, he found lethal, and that's first blood going over to Viper.
Yeah, and that's the power that you have with double combat summoners. Really nicely played by the BLG bot lane. Viper using his lethal tempo stacks very aggressively and making sure that he's actually able to look now for another kill.
Oh my goodness! BLG bot lane just put on a clinic here to kick off our last regular season series of the year.
Hey, it's not quite where we thought it would happen. But the early game snowball for BLG is happening. It's come down out of the bot lane, this Ezreal Bard duo, and after we saw On miss 2 out of 3 Cosmic Bindings there, wasn't expecting it to be quite so one-sided, but the power of having Barrier versus using that Ghost, Hope didn't really dodge out on anything. Viper was still hitting those Mystic shots, so when you've got, it was actually Exhaust coming down instead of the Barrier, but you can see there that it made the job for BLG that little bit easier. Just 2.5 minutes in, Mark, and 1,300 gold in their favor.
Well, we asked for BLG. They need to find a snowball. They need to get ahead of the game. I'm looking at bot lane. I'm putting a check mark there. Shanks could now be the next target, forced to immediately pop the Ghost, and dodges out on what could have been a crucial Cosmic Binding.
Yeah, if that Q lands, we're talking about On MVPs already for game number 1, you know? Like, that's Mr. Worldwide moving through bot, through up to mid lane as well. Even putting a little bit of pressure down on the jungler. Doesn't actually end up doing all that much, but it is going to be a trade of crabs here. And again, remember that we are looking very heavily towards BLG to start this game off with a snowball. Anyone's Legend sort of curtailed in their ability to get the game rolling early on. Their jungler is a Nocturne. We're waiting till level 6 for that to happen. And in terms of responses from BLG, I've always had Neferi in my brain as this jungler that's not particularly great at ganking, but that just turns up at team fights with a couple of items, kills your backline, and that's the value that the Neferi has. It's not from being able to necessarily get into the lanes and impact them unless they're in a particularly volatile state.
The competitive play approved assassin jungler, as most other assassins are just too hard to work with, or you require such a mechanically proficient pilot, which, to be fair, both of these two junglers more than capable of being able to play things like the Kiana that we have seen from time and time again here in the LPL. But so far, for Anyone's Legend, they were hoping to kind of ease into that first mid-game power spike without any troubles or bumps in the road. Well, I don't know if we've had quite a car crash on the bot side, but there definitely was a traffic jam, and they are trying to solve that as soon as possible.
They are fully in triage mode right now. Identify the problem, try to stop it from happening again, and Hope's answer to that is go back to base, pick up a call, and just try to outfarm the Ezreal for later on into the game. Be more useful. But I do think, again, as this game gets later, it is going to be a little bit more difficult for the Sivir to find access. I think looking at targets that she can actually auto-attack, there aren't that many on the list that are going to be easily accessible for her without finding herself in a good amount of danger. As On takes a portal.
I do like this response from Tarzan, just being able to bail out Kael and Hope and hover them. And On, Mr. Worldwide has gotten a little too crunk for the likes of anyone's legend, and Tarzan finally rectifies the odds here on the bot side of the map.
He's a kill for the Anyone's Legend jungler. Feel like they were trying to feed that over to Hope, but weren't quite able to do so. Nevertheless, it is going to be a little bit of a reprieve, an opportunity now for Viper to have to sit back, hope to catch up on that farm, maybe get some of his cull stacks uncontested. But good to see that Tarzan, even pre-level 6, is able to make a little bit of the difference here, get a little bit of impact felt down on that bot side. And even if it's not completely turned the tides of the bot lane, it's put the scale a little bit more into AL's favor.
Both Tarzan shooting very close now to that level 6 breakpoint. On's going to go hunting into the bot jungle. This will force Tarzan to stop his base, however. Wait, On, did you want to take that portal? I guess he's got Knife for backup, but he's got to be able to burn him down, and he definitely does. Why would I ever doubt the GOAT there? And now he's got Shun in his back pocket. Yes, Shanks will be able to clean up at least one, but that baits both the jungle and the mid laner into their counterparts in the river.
BLG are schmoving here in the early game, and that's exactly what they need to be doing. On getting active on the map once again. Yes, he's fallen for a second time, but that is a very worthwhile death. Taking down the mid and jungle of Anyone's Legend just for your own life is incredibly worthwhile, so On will be very happy with that, and will be continuing, I would like to imagine, making moves across the rift. We've got Drake alive, and we haven't seen too much focus on those early on by these teams just yet. With the Grub spawning in 120, it really looks like wherever On goes, BLG will follow. As on this top side, just worth taking a quick check in here. Flandre with a small gold lead, as you would expect for Jace versus Cassante, but nothing that's going to bring the house down at this stage.
For sure. You know, I definitely got a little excited that Flandre started with Grass of the Undying this game, and it brought me back to the time when Flandre invented Tank Jace. But seeing the components for Yuma's Ghostblade makes me probably think that we just are going to need the upfront damage from Jace going into this first game of the series, combined with all of the burst and poke and lack of true sustained damage for Bilibili Gaming with this first dragon starting to take a wallop onto On here, who's just trying to clear some dang vision here, man.
He's just soloing it all out top side now, though.
Flandre might be in trouble. Good punt away. The flash immediately matched by Flandre, and he gets out alive.
Looking at mid lane, no realm warp from Shanks, no roam timer available to him, means that Flandre will be able to go back to base, and it's Breathe who's found himself a little bit of an advantage in that top lane. May not necessarily be in the gold, but that will start to bleed into this next couple of minutes for him. A TP there for Flandre means he's going to catch the majority of this wave and be absolutely fine. But that first dragon went the way of BLG. Expect now that they'll look for a recall on Viper. They'll look for a recall definitely on. And they'll be booking it back out to that top side. We need to try and contest the Grubs. I feel like their composition is so favoured in this early stage of the game that they should be looking for everything they can.
Yeah. Even if it is a small advantage, it's one that BLG have always felt confident in the past to take to the distance with. But Shun says, why don't we kill bot lane first? Hope immediately pops the ultimate for the extra movement speed, distance himself away, and now they suspect someone might be coming, and well, Shun was already there. Get some decent chip damage on the Kael and Hope, and now Tarzan is just signaling to the bot lane, guys, please don't die. I'm taking the Grubs.
Alright, I'm actually going to be able to get away with it here. I was looking at the minimap. Knight was pinging Shanks and the movement of the Rise to sort of let the team know, hey, this is okay, you can go for this. They even had a pink ward down inside the pit to know that those Grubs were being taken by Tarzan. They just decided not to go for it, so maybe thinking they didn't have quite enough juice to be able to find that dive, but it's AL able to stave off of the aggression from Xun. Really the first look that we've seen from this Neferi here, outside of that play in the river, which felt catalyzed by On more so than anything, that isn't successful. So Tarzan here, off to, at the very least, the best start of his team, actually finding a gold advantage over his counterpart.
Also has a decent experience lead as well ahead of Xun's Neferi, so we'll see if anyone's legend can start getting proactive once they start hitting these one-item power spikes in the next couple of minutes. For BLG, want to reiterate the fact that this composition needs to thrive on a snowball, because if this game goes even and we get into the later stages of the game past 3 items where this Cassante is racking up a ton of armor and BLG's damage is not all that sustained, things are going to be pretty tough for Bilibili Gaming.
It is. I don't want to call it impossible, but it's definitely much more difficult for them to execute. They need to rely on Viper's poke, on Flandra's poke to get the ball rolling before the fight even starts, and I think that if AL play it properly, they can just have Breathe try to absorb as much of that as possible. But for these two teams, obviously has been a relatively successful split, like we mentioned, like you mentioned, Raafaa. BLG off the back of a good but disappointing end to an international. They are already locked and loaded in for at least another go at that, but they are going to have to try to close out this season on the best foot as possible. And I think that expectation, at least going into the playoffs, would be that BLG are our favourites. But with resurging teams, a little bit like LGD, like WE, I feel like you always have to mention them as a potential upset candidate. You can never really count that the LPL is going to be predictable. And this series as well, I imagine, a little bit of a precursor to that, giving us a glimpse of how unpredictable it may well be.
Anything is possible in the LPL, Rood. If there's one lesson that we can... Absolutely. 2 very important lessons we have taken with us to heart after being able to join the LPL English broadcast almost coming up 2 years ago now, at the start of 2025. Things have calmed down a bit here on Summoner's Rift. Flandra now having to deal with a duo lane in his top lane, whereas Breathe went to go to the bottom side of the map. We don't have another objective on this top side, though, for 3 more minutes, whereas Dragon number 2 is coming up in a minute and some change. So curious to see what the purpose of this swap is, unless they are just trying to bail Hope out of having to play against Viper and On.
Yeah, it's a twofold approach. It means that you don't have to play on this Trinity Force versus Component spike. And also, it gives Hope a little bit of extra gold. There's no way that they were pushing the Ezreal Bard in just because of the Trinity Force advantage. They'd be able to push Flandra in, find a couple of plates. I think it was probably only 1, as now Knight might be in trouble, but does have everything ready. Yeah, and Breathe's just recalling, not particularly interested. But it did give Hope an opportunity to go up to that top side, find a plate, get a little bit more gold into his back pocket, something that he wouldn't have been able to do down in the bot side. Goes back to base, picks up a Yuntal, now out to the mid lane with Dragon spawning in 15 seconds here, Raafaa. This is maybe our first butting of heads between these two teams, as BLG haven't really extended that gold lead all that much in the last, honestly, 10 minutes.
Knight trying to fish for a recall would be somewhat ill-advised when Dragon just spawned and he has no TP, but maybe it was a fake one, just to have some fun there, as Tarzan is just clearing out the rest of his bottom side camps before BLG make any strong motions toward the Dragon pit. And On is pushed off of a attempted attack on that control ward, so anyone's legend going to keep a majority of the red side quadrant in darkness. Oh, he's going to attack it again for sure.
Yep, and there he is, immediately On. Like, I've played far too many support games. Ain't no way I'm playing Bard and letting a pink ward live. You can take my life before you can take my glory of taking down a pink ward. And, you know, On gets 2 for the price of 1 there, walks into the mid lane and goes, hey, there we go, that's an extra freebie. And that's going to open up in tandem with seeing a little bit of hesitancy from Tarzan as he moves down towards his Krugs. He knows that the jungler, for anyone's legend, not quite close enough.
Paranoia used by Tarzan, goes immediately for Viper, and he just flashes over the wall into the safety of Shuna Knight.
Ghost.
Now Shanks trying to flash forward. Rune Prison on a flashless A to carry. That's a recipe for success. Shutdown Bounty going to go into the pockets of Shanks, and anyone's legend continue to climb back the small deficit and even up the game state here for anyone's legend.
Yeah, good pan from our observers here. Flandre able to find at least 2 platings here on the top side. And again, it's BLG deciding what they're happy to sacrifice. This time around, it ended up being Viper, who did get taken down. But what BLG got for this was that Dragon, was also a top tier 1 turret entirely into Flandre's pocket. So a good opportunity for him to show AL what they're now missing and see if in the future BLG will be keeping him, because you have to remember that this is a competition for the spot, and I know that there's this the idea that BLG might be able to play the old school sword and shield combo where they pan to one top laner for one style, pan to one for the other. But Flandre here looking very good on the Jace, and with this gold lead, he's now going to have to try and make that work in these team fights.
I remember we did a segment on one of our podcast episodes talking about what do you want to play Flandre for and what do you want to play Bin for. On Magical Journey, hell of a drug. Gets you out of almost any sticky scenario. The fact that Flandre is demonstrating somewhat of a solid performance on the Jace, which is we normally associate to be a Bin S tier pick. It's a way for you to show that, hey, listen, you don't need me just for things like the Rek'Sai top and the Aurora top. I will play all the standard stuff just as good as Bin. It's even though this series has no realistic stakes, as we said before, it is a good precursor and a good warm-up getting ready for playoffs. And if Flandre is able to perform this well, we'll see how he can translate it. He still has TP. Breathe does not.
On the hunt ready. Paranoia ready. Herald low.
Herald secured. Temper Fate dodged. Paranoia used. Lights are completely off. A TP has come in from Flandre. They're immediately using the Rift Herald, and On's going to take it for a ride. Knight, the first one into the fray. Here comes On around the corner. And it's just a crash into the turret.
All right, smart pathing actually by On. If he goes through the mid lane, he gets pinged out in front of all of AL and either dies or catalyzes a fight that I don't really think BLG were too set to look for. Knight did go fishing. Unfortunately, wasn't able to connect on a charm on anybody in particularly important. Does mean that, again, as we're moving through this mid-game, actually, where the gold lies has shifted. Previously, it was all on Viper, and the lead that this Ezreal had been able to get. Hope and the rest of anyone's legend have done a very good job at moving this Sivir around, finding her gold, particularly around that dragon earlier on that we saw. We were able to find a lot of gold onto the Sivir that Viper did not pick up, but Breathe now in a 1v4.
All right, Breathe, let's see how tanky you are at 17 minutes into the game. And without the assistance of a turret, the answer is not tanky enough when it comes to 4 BLG members trying to gang up on you. That's a little bit of extra gold into BLG's pocket, but at the very least for the Pandas, they've got Shanks on the top side pushing in that top tier 1 and decent plates for Hope in the mid lane.
Very good little play. Again, what do they lose for this? A little bit of plating on this top turret. Shanks going to be able to get a little bit more gold. And again, for BLG, this game about snowballing, about trying to make sure that they've got some semblance of an advantage moving into the mid to late game. And outside of the gold here offer, they already do. 2 dragons in their favor with a Hex Tech Soul potentially up for grabs. Nerves of Steel there by Hope. Shun looking to interrupt. Gets a spell shield out, so it does do that. But worth noting that with the composition that we're saying for BLG is going to be more difficult to execute later on. I won't necessarily say gets outscaled, but definitely not as easy to play. And now we go for a fight.
Paranoia onto Flandre, following the flash up as well onto his former teammate, and says, back to the Shadow Realm you go. And now Viper might be taken out for a ride on the left side. Breathe just wallops him into the ground. Knight forced to retreat with the Spirit Rush. Breathe looking for that Q3. Doesn't quite land it, but the pressure is still felt as anyone's legend find another successful fight in stopping the BLG snowball.
Yeah, and Tarzan once again here, the catalyst for anyone's legend. 100% kill participation in this game. Wherever he goes, the team are following. We get a replay of this. Flandre walks up to try and hit the turret, and the Nocturne just says no. Early flash so that tether cannot be broken. means that the Jace is CC'd the entire time, and then up on this top side, Viper gets all outed into the waiting arms of a Ryze, who is more than able to take that down.
Back to live. Shooting a little bit in trouble. On trying to follow up on the Flandra. Tempered Fate goes wide, and he's the first one to fall. Flandra now backed up into a corner, trying to escape the clutches of the Cassante, but leans onto the rest of BLG to try and finish off the tank. But meanwhile, the Pandas take the Dragon for free, and BLG have successfully been slowed down enough that the Pandas feel like they can claw back their way back into the game.
Yeah, Drake stacking no longer there for BLG, but they do find a couple of exit kills onto anyone's legend. Get a little bit of time now to, again, extend what should be a decent lead for Flandra. But the question becomes, Mark, is that actually yielding them anything? Are they generating enough of an advantage through this Jace to make all of those investments worthwhile? Flandra in these team fights got focused out in the last one. We haven't really seen him be active in any others, so the pressure on the side lane may be worthwhile. We'll have to see if Flandra can utilize this. And again, in the inter-team politics that is going on at BLG that just happens when you have a 6-man roster, this is a big match for Flandra to try and showcase his power, to showcase that if you give me the gold, I can carry. And he's been given the gold, and the second part we'll need to see if he can manifest.
Meanwhile, Shanks solo pushing on the bot side of the map. Flandra onto item spike. First shock blast does not connect, but it's enough pressure that BLG are able to finally weather down this tier 1 in the mid lane. Open up the map a little bit further, which should give them even more opportunities to try and set up these picks. For anyone's legend, though,
very heavily toward this Ryze. Got moved around the map to find a couple of turret plates on the top side earlier when a Drake was being taken. They forfeited mid-tier 1 to allow Shanks to get this gold of a tier 1 turret down on the bot side. Now moving him up to the top lane as well, and you can see Tarzan clearing out the vision on the top side alongside Kael, making sure that they have got enough vision sat and ready for Shanks so that he's not the one in trouble. A little bit of a pick on the cards.
Shanks able to dodge the charm, but cannot dodge the Tempered Fate. Tarzan turns out the lights here with his ultimate, and they turn right onto the MVP contender, but Shanks will not live to tell the tale. Tarzan falls, and it's enough BLG members to finally shroud out the light. Anyone's legend losing out on their jungle and mid duo again, and BLG say it's go time for the Baron.
Yeah, and they'll be able to pick this one up relatively uncontested. You can see Hope still hitting onto that mid lane turret, and BLG probably going to look to collapse and take the Sivir down as well. Knight doesn't have the Spirit Rush available, but as the Baron falls, On's already in the mid lane. Hope uses on the hunt, does get out to safety, but for BLG here, a massive win, and a little bit too telegraphed by anyone's legend. It was a little too obvious, and BLG read them like a book. They are ready with not just 3 members, but 4 on this top side, with a TP coming through from Flandra as well to really seal the deal. They are able to find a 4v3 on this top side. You can see that Hope's ready to move from the mid lane, that actually there was a walk coming from Breathe. He was looking to get involved, but he wasn't there in time, and now it's BLG back in that driver's seat.
BLG being able to double down at the right times has allowed them to maintain this momentum, this lead, despite all of the honestly great attempts by AL to stabilize the game for themselves while they continue to scale into the later stages of this game 1. But BLG now with Baron buff on their side, we'll see how far they can go, how far they can push. Tier 2 turret in the bot lane, ready to fall with one more successful minion wave push.
BLG, such a good team at extending their leads, using their Barons, and really now hold on, Tarzan.
Oh, Flandra once again. Tarzan, I know he's your former teammate, but this is a lot of love being shown to who is now a BLG top laner, as Flandra's trying to trade blows onto Hope before he goes down swinging.
Somebody kill him!
It's going to force Kael's hand to just take the kill credit, but there's too much time spent trying to take out the Jace, because now here comes Knight, ready to swing on in and pounce. Shun as well, sinking his fangs into the AL corpses. BLG now to carry this one out. Tarzan still alive, so is Breathe. He goes all out on the Knight, but Viper this time around able to rally enough mystic shots into his back, and Tarzan will be the final one to drop. BLG get an ace here at 24 minutes.
20 seconds on Hope, 20 seconds on Kael. They died really early on. Probably just inhibitor turret here for Knight. Maybe an inhib to boot, but this is another big win for BLG. It might not be about the turrets that they take, more so about the standing in the game. With 10 seconds on that Dragon, do you think that the death timers are a little bit awkward for anyone's Legend to try to contest? They just go fishing and think that they've got a little bit more than they actually have. Realm Warp goes up to the top side, and it splits the carries of anyone's Legend. Hope and Kael here get a little bit too caught in the weeds of who's actually supposed to kill Flandre. It does end up meaning that he lives for long enough for Knight to get in. Bad spell shield by Hope. He could have spell shielded any of the leading damage beforehand, which would have meant that he could get in and do damage to the Jace, reassess the fight with his team afterwards. And meanwhile, on the backside, the BLG bot lane are just dancing with 3 members of anyone's Legend, absolutely giving them the runaround.
07 deserved in the chat for on there. He's had a couple of deaths that have been a little too funky for BLG's liking, but he has been the maestro in leading anyone's Legend around. Now, On might be caught out again by Tarzan, and as I say that, classic caster curse moment. On, that's on me, buddy. I apologize. Hope we'll be able to get the kill credit on that one. We'll see if anyone's Legend can find any more. It's just a Raptor camp stolen for Tarzan's liking. BLG still ahead, though, by 4K at the 25-minute mark. Realm Warp trying to cut off Shun, but Shun can just run to mid lane. At the very least, they can try and steal this red buff away. That's it.
Bad angle for AL, but I think the problem is that if they Realm Warp immediately onto the Neferi, then BLG are too close and can line up those skill shots quite easily. So they go for the safe play. It ultimately nets them nothing. Now BLG the ones forcing them back when they've only got 4 members on the Rift. It goes to show you the power, the pressure that this BLG composition has. These players so good at forcing an advantage. And not just that, but hammering home. They find a single exposed wound and they will prize it open.
Rude, remind me, during the draft, didn't you say something about how today the Rise Realm Warps have been somewhat underwhelming?
I did say that.
Worrying trends here in game 1. Now, or actually, worrying trends continuing on throughout the day. BLG, without a Baron buff, are still making light work of this top tier tour in the top side of the map here. BLG, though, will take their leave. They've got about 1 minute and 20 before the next Baron spawn approaches, so might as well get your final camps farmed up and try and hit your 3rd item power spikes for a majority of these carries.
I think that importantly, that Medjai's for Knight now in inventory was sat with 10 stacks on the Dark Seal. Zhonya's in back pocket as well, so really knows that he's got all of the tools in the arsenal to stay safe. And hopefully with the Medjai's in the back pocket, he'll be looking to extend that lead even further. I feel like Knight, pound for pound, is the player who goes for the most Medjai's in the LPL. So it's good to see that staying on brand here for this one, as Tarzan has now finished that Guardian Angel, but is working ever closer to the Ahri.
Uh-oh. Flashroom Prison looking for the 80 carry as Viper tries to flash away, and the Magical Journey allows him to escape for now. On will be the Sacrificial Lamb. Tempered Fate does snag 2 and slows down their approach. Tarzan gives his GA up so that the Pandas can slay another in the BLG camp. And now with 5 members strong, it might be the Pandas' time to try and start up this Baron.
I think the Baron is a little risky. They've still got Knight available. There's still a Jace that can poke at you, and importantly, there's still Jun here who can steal this away, but anyone's Legend used the faux life of the Guardian Angel beautifully and are now working on that Baron. Breathe zoning one. Shanks is too low to try and zone the other.
Jun has Flash. He has called the pack. Flash from Breathe. Forced to use the W. Brings him into the pit. And it's Tarzan that is clutch with the Smite Key at 900 HP. Anyone's Legend eliminate the jungler. They claw back from a 4,000 gold deficit, and Anyone's Legend are back in the game.
And again, remember that this composition for Anyone's Legend scales incredibly well into the late game. Sivir and Rise are relatively unmatched in terms of damage as we move later on versus their counterparts. But it's Knight who goes wide on a charm. Tarzan expecting this, and a flash engage from Shanks to find the route onto Viper, who, you know, uses everything in the Ezreal's toolkit there, but still can't get away from Sivir, from Ryze, from the power that these bot lane, or the bot lane of AL in particular, has. Just being able to run you down.
And we think back to about 10 minutes ago when AL were able to push BLG off of that third dragon spawn and denied them what was originally their sole point. BLG could have been already a Hex Tech Soul, and this game would have been a lot easier to navigate and a lot easier to play out some of these sequential skirmishes out in past the 25-minute mark. Now we're approaching another dragon where it is BLG's soul to claim, but with the Baron buff on their side, I imagine that AL should be favored in being able to get position set up for this Drake pit.
And crucially so that they are. Raafaa here, like you said, soul spawning 20 seconds away. Taking a check-in on those inventories. Knight, just as strong as he was in the last fight, hasn't really found anything from that last skirmish to push him over the edge, maybe saving for a death cap. But Shanks, they know that he's here from that blue ward, is just as strong, has got 3 completed items with the actualizer plus the arm guard.
Doesn't find Shanks with the charms, but he does find Tarzan. Shun goes in, dumps a bunch of damage with the Hound's Pursuit, but immediately it's a full retreat from the rest of BLG. They cannot dare to walk up when the rest of the map was shrouded in darkness. Knight getting pretty darn low on HP. Shun is thinking about trying to go in for more damage as Viper is laying down the poke with these Mystic shots, and Tarzan was pushed out. He went to a camp to try and get some more HP, and Shun is trying to flip this dragon, but Tarzan has arrived back from the jungle. Can Shun get in? Oh, On's on the wrong side of the tracks. He's bought some time. Shanks dodges the Temper Fate. Shun's back in! And Tarzan once again clutched with the smite, and Shunfield flashes into the wall. That's no good sign. Knight is about to lose all pages of his BM book as Shanks finally slays the MVP contender. BLG lose their lead. They lose all 5, and Anyone's Legend are ready to send this one into the base. Only Viper's the last one standing on the side of BLG.
The Baron at their back here, Raafaa. 30 minutes into the game. Anyone's Legend with those grubs as well. I've got 30 seconds to lay waste to the base of Bilibili Gaming. Baron has just worn off, and Viper going to try to do what he can. Anyone's Legend, the inhibitor of formality, much more. We'll have to wait and see. I feel like they're going to call it a day. Not even take the inhibitor. On the hunt goes out. They know that there are TPs available, Flandre in particular. Maybe they didn't know that Knight used it to get back to the Drake. I think they could have gone for the inhib and got out. But instead they play it safe. They're going to make sure that they don't overplay their hand here, Raafaa. We go back to a game state where, honestly, Anyone's Legend are incredibly favoured now. Yeah. Take a look at this team fight. This is how on the top side, On gets a little bit caught out. He doesn't think that there's going to be a play for Shanks up this close. He's trying to get back out after a recall. But Jun goes into the pit. He's isolated. Knight caught out there, and Kael with a great flash to ensure that the tether connects. Obviously, Tarzan gets a little crazy here. Does find another kill, and it ensures that Flandre falls. But Anyone's Legend with 4 members strong. And the composition that in the late game can just do that little bit more. We're finding that the power of the poke for BLG not quite good enough, and the power of the DPS for Anyone's Legend doing more than enough.
I have to say, Rood, I think it is a good sign of things to come for Anyone's Legend to show that they don't need to rely on a draft and a composition where Tarzan gets to freely invade into Shun's jungle and Kael just leaves hope to whatever abandon and just tries to play for jungle gab. Oh, wait a minute.
That's GA.
Okay, well, Tarzan's going to lose his GA. Can he get out? Paranoia gives him the cover of darkness. He walks out alive. Thank goodness for the side of Anyone's Legend. I thought I was about to have another caster curse there.
Well, you tried real hard. Fortunately, though, for Anyone's Legend, not quite successful enough. And for AL there, Tarzan in particular, I don't know if I want to call that necessarily a massive blunder, but they were setting up around this top side, and I think BLG sort of gambled that that would be the play that they went for, and quite rightly so. They come up with taking down Tarzan's GA, which, I mean, you know, is a really big cooldown to have when in the next 5 minutes we've got Baron spawning and another chance at BLG's soul. So if Tarzan goes in, doesn't have a way out, that's a one-way trip, that's a dead Nocturne. He's not going to have the GA available, which so far this game has had pretty decent value. Got 2 procs out of it already.
Oh my goodness, Hope might just get blown up here. Forced to flash immediately. That was very close for AL there.
Yeah, they need to sort it out. That's twice now that they've used crucial spells to be allowed safety from positions that they ought to just never have been in.
You can see the gears turning for BLG, where they are recognizing that they cannot just sit idly by and wait for another team fight scenario. They just have to find a pick scenario and immediately spring on the first target that walks up isolated. Hope potentially giving them another window for this next fight.
I said that as the game gets later, BLG's game gets harder, and that's because we need to now see Flandre and Viper land the poke, and not just land the poke, but land it onto crucial targets as well. If it's onto the Cassante, that doesn't matter. But if they can get it on Shanks, if they can get it on Hope, these champions who don't yet have sustain, that's then where the BLG composition can thrive. And if we can see Knight and Jun pair up, find a target, that could be good as well.
Temper Fate onto Shanks. Paranoia used, trying to give Shanks a way out of this one. As he steps up, looks to force Shun out of the call of the pack. Tarzan really trying to take out the jungler, but forcing the flash out of him. Flandre sectioned off for the rest of his team, as Shanks will push him out and force a flash out of him. But the rest of BLG ready to fight again, looking at every single low health bar on the side of anyone's legend. They cannot close the distance, but they have gained control of the space here on the top side of the map.
So it looks like it could be a trade Baron for Dragon, but anyone's legend, they are not happy with this, Raafaa. They see the low health bars on BLG. They know the Baron's going to slowly chip away at them as well. We see Shanks clearing the wave. He'll TP. Can't TP in.
Tarzan not able to pull another miracle. Can't get in to steal it, but Knight will be sacrificed alongside on. The rest of BLG should be able to walk away with the Baron buff on their side, but anyone's legend should have enough time to push through mid and get control and deny another Hextech soul away from BLG.
Yeah, and I think this is, again, just a neutralizer for BLG here. Anyone's legend. No Baron means that the waves do just get cleared. Flandre can poke out the backline. Viper can deal with the melees and the initial cannon creeps. But he's going to give anyone's legend another dragon, so 3 Hextechs, nothing here. Talk about the souls as those crucial buffs, but I hope they're going to have a decent amount of attack speed to go alongside this. And we talked about the fact that this game is going to rely on BLG for that poke to land. I see Hope has got a BF sword in the inventory. One hopes that it heads toward a Vampiric Scepter, but Guardian Angel, we've already seen the value that that has this game for Tarzan. We'll take another look. It's BLG who find the Baron, yes, but they do lose Knight, they do lose on. Don't think that there's too much from this that they'll be too sad about, as it's now about what they can do with this Baron. They've already taken the mid-tier 2 turret. Viper and On doing a good job at pushing that wave deep. But how do they ever start a fight if it's not below the tier 3 turret? And even if it's underneath the tier 3 turret, I feel like that's a bit too far for BLG at this stage. They're still down in gold.
Anyone's legend have had the gold advantage since that great overturn on the 5th dragon take just about 7 minutes ago. And for BLG, they've been trying to find opportunistic plays on any target that steps up a little too far from the rest of the pack. It hasn't been enough to be able to stabilize the game in their favor. They have the Baron buff only for another 50 seconds. And as you called out, Rude, it doesn't seem likely that BLG will be able to crack open the base anytime soon. And your answers have been, or your prayers have been answered, I should say. Hang on. Oh, On. I believe you're the person that's caught out. Magical Journey is just going to lead Tarzan into a wall. And Knight now has to make the hell out of there so that Shanks doesn't lock him up for another kill alongside for anyone's legend. As I was trying to say, Rude, Hope has a PT. So now he has that sustain, and it seems almost unlikely that BLG will ever be able to pop him without anyone's legend finding a response in turn.
Well, again, the game's just getting that little bit harder here for BLG as we are moving later and later, and with that, the burden of execution shifts back to Jun and back to Knight. Your MVP candidate for BLG going to need to step up majorly in these final team fights. Has got 4 items now on the Ari. Has got a death cap included in those, so getting access to the backline not a difficult task for an Ari, but being able to do something with it very much dependent on the landing of those spells as AL work their way through the bot lane, find an inhibitor. It's now about whether BLG want to fight afterwards.
Shanks caught by the Bard ultimate, but no one from BLG can
doing.
even think about a follow-up.
Just when the Tempered Fate lands, Breathe knows exactly his job. The Cassante walks in front of the Rise, buys the space, eats the CC, uses the Pathmaker perfectly, and it allows for Shanks to keep both Summoner spells, and for anyone's Legend to move into the next 2 minutes where the Drake and Baron are spawning at about the same time, with pretty much everything ready. Summoner spells for all 10 members. All but available. We're missing heal on. But that's about it.
No objectives for the next minute and 30 seconds. Baron will be up. Hextech Soul for either team will be available for the taking. Anyone's Legend had a couple of bumps in the early stages of the game, but they were able to stabilize, they were able to answer blow for blow pretty evenly, and never allowed BLG to overwhelm the game state before they could scale, and they are now rewarded where both their mid lane and their bot lane are almost at full build.
And it would be a big win for anyone's Legend here, just to find a win, like a game win up against BLG. BLG so far this season have only lost 9 games in the entire split, where anyone's Legend have lost 12. So the win-loss ratio for these teams is wildly different. BLG, yes, they've got an 11-2 record, AL 9-4, but a 10% game disparity as well. BLG have been much more consistent, meaning anyone's Legend have been firstly pushed to a lot of Game 3 wins where they've won the series, but also have had their share here of 0-2s. Definitely not been in their best look for the split. Like you said, Mark, 20 seconds now on Baron, now on the pivotal Soul Drake.
My goodness. On taking way too much damage from Shanks there. I'm gonna try and stay a little far back so that he can still contribute a Tempered Fate that may save BLG's game here, depending on who it snags. Dragon has spawned. Shun tries to leash it. The rest of anyone's Legend staying strong as a 5-man core unit, close together. Viper throws out the True Shot Barrage for some crucial poke and some vision. Paranoia used, immediately goes for Shun. Call to pack, goes up in the air. Breathe flashing forward and says, "Get over here, Flandra!" As he forces the flash out of him over the Dragon Pit wall. 2,000 HP. Shanks is the one that secures the Hextech Soul. And anyone's Legend love these odds. GA being expended, but it's Hope that runs everyone through with the boomerang blades and slices them down to size. Picks up the quadra kill, and anyone's Legend are on the victory march as Hope searches for a penta. On is going to make him work for it, but the rest of the Pandas will make sure that they can end the game 1 in fashion of pure dominance.
It will be a futile effort running for a Bard, but anyone's Legend with a glorious game number 1. They sat, they absorbed the pressure in the first 15 minutes and came out on top in the latter 25.
The rest of the AL members trying to see if they can feed Hope the Penta. Don't think it happened in time, but it's an unofficial one in our hearts, and anyone's Legend take game 1 of the series.
And he'll take that. I mean, for anyone's Legend here, this is a real big win. Again, the story of these two teams, the story of this season has been that BLG, regardless of their top lane roster swaps, have been the most dominant force in the league. Anyone's Legend have been plagued by inconsistency. They almost lost a series to EDG. They had a real worrying time of things throughout the last couple of weeks. But righting the ship up against BLG, at least finding a game win here, puts them in exactly the right position to hopefully take a 2-0 for them and to start their post-season campaign on the right foot.
Like we mentioned earlier during the game, this draft is not something that anyone's Legend are usually associated with when it comes to like a winning formula for how they built up a lot of their wins during the regular season. It was mostly adapting to the support roaming style, mage bots, or bot laners that you can leave on an island by themselves, and you allow Kael to just enable and unlock Tarzan to remove the enemy jungle from the game. This one was slower. It was one where they faced a lot of problems, where obviously their bot lane died 2v2 solo. There's some kills being picked up by Shun and Knight here and there, and so we're getting a little nervous that, okay, well, this is usually a game where BLG, they'll get the lead and they'll be able to overwhelm you. And after that first Baron take, it seems like that was going to be the case. But AL, being able to demonstrate this other facet of them in time for playoffs is a good sign for fans of the Pandas.
Yeah, and I think as well that this felt a lot like AL actually across the board were stepping up. And you can really see sort of the differences in these compositions, where for BLG, we knew the game was going to get harder for them as it went later. We, hit 25 minutes and all of a sudden the game looks really difficult for them. Hope and Shanks doing a great job. I think Shanks, one of the more unsung heroes for this game. His DPS was actually incredible, over 1,000 damage per minute in this one, as he was zoning everybody away, right? On tries to walk in for a Q, he gets half HP'd by Shanks. If Jun ever goes near the Rise, he's getting taken to half HP as well. And then in those fights as well, just doing far more than that when he gets the chance.
Rude, what is our temperature read on Flandre for BLG?
Well, I think that in this game, I don't recall ever once going, that's a big shock blast. I don't really ever recall going, that's the right, like, you've done a great job into the backline there. So for me, it's a miss for Flandre. That's the temperature check. A little bit cool so far on at least the Jace side of it for him.
Mm-hmm. I was already a little concerned with how Breathe was pushing him around in that one solo kill attempt. Obviously, he didn't die, and he made sure that he was able to still maintain somewhat of a gold advantage. And I think when it came to side lane play and just understanding where to be and when to be on the map was good from Flandre. Unfortunately, like you said, when it came to actually using his champion, the impact was almost invisible.
Yeah, like, I mean, this is a really good example. If we take a look in this fight at what he's actually able to do, he can't really be the one who's walking back and staying in cannon form. You want your Jace to be diving onto the backline and be looking for these targets, but at this stage, it feels like they already know that the fight's over, but Flandre's not making an effort to try and turn it back around. When you know that the odds are against you, you kind of have to make the theoretically bad plays so that you can get your way back into the game.
Mm-hmm.
They might be low percentage, but if they work, they're what bring you back.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And for BLG, we already explained that if this composition didn't overwhelm AL by the time we got to the mid game with a really staggering gold advantage, or ones where you could at least feel the wallet gap, the stat gap just smacking you across the face, anyone's Legends composition was going to be favored straight up. They had the tank, BLG really didn't. They had multiple ways to force a fight with engage tools, BLG didn't. That simple.
Unfortunately, it was. And, BLG here, they'll go back to the coach's room, they'll lick their wounds, they'll come back out. Again, they're a team, they're an organization that have been down in series before. You'd like to think that they'll be able to rally back and to give us a good showing for game number 2. I do think that the way that the draft went, it still opens up very heavily for Knight's pool to be left open, with the Orianna and the Syndra directly taken away. And obviously there was a couple of bans thrown by BLG towards the mid lane as well. So there is an opportunity for Knight to maybe get a little bit more active on the map. Did feel like on the Ari it was on a relative scale, not what we are used to seeing. We had the Medjais picked up, but didn't get to see that really fully exemplified.
Tarzan with the player of the game. Thoughts, Rude?
You know, fine, understandable. I think shouts for Tarzan make sense. I'd like to see like 1 or 2 votes for Shanks in the end game though, because I do think that the Rise was actually really dominant in the late game team fights. The reason that Tarzan gets the MVP here, I think, is because he carried AL through the mid game and actually propelled them into the fights.
Was also very, very clutch in 50-50 smite scenarios, not once, but twice, and potentially a third time, although it looked like Shanks was the last hit on the Hextech Soul that won them the fight and allowed Hope to sail with a quadra kill into the end of the game. But we'll get results maybe during the break on how many voted. 6 out of 8 for Tarzan. We'll see if it was 2 for Shanks or 2 for Hope.
Maybe a Hope, yeah, that makes sense. Again, the Sivir until the very final part of the team fight didn't really do a lot, but then had a good team fight, got a pentakill basically. So you've always got to give some credit where that's how the people are going to find it, I guess.
You know, I mean, anyone's legend just resorted to a good old classic generic green wing strat. 6 item Sivir gets the job done when matters most. And Hope actually delivered and did his best Teddy impression, being able to farm up a storm and get to that point of the game. But that is game 1 wrapped in the books for our final series of the day. We're going to be taking it to a short break. When we come back, it's going to be game 2 between anyone's legend and Bilibili Gaming.